LogMyCalls, and we're really excited that you're here today for this webinar with Josh McCoy of Vision Interactive. Thank you very much, Josh, for taking the time to be with us. We'll introduce Josh more fully in a moment, and thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to be here. First things first, we want to provide just a little context about who we are, set the scene a little bit so you know why we host these webinars, and then we'll provide the ground rules, if you will, and the housekeeping items for today's webinar. So we are LogMyCalls. We provide three things, basically. The first thing is we provide call tracking for marketers. And basically what that is, if you're unfamiliar with it, is we can tell you which ads, campaigns, keywords, etc. generate phone calls and which don't. So we can tell you which specific keyword group in AdWords is producing phone calls. We can tell you if your direct mail piece is producing calls, or even which calls are coming from organic search. Number two, we record calls if you want it. And the third thing we do is the thing that makes us unique, that no one else really does. What we do is we actually analyze the calls using speech recognition technology. So the calls run through our analytics database, our system, this huge engine we've built with hundreds of thousands of algorithms, and we extract data from the call. So we can tell you, for example, if the call resulted in an appointment or a sale. We can tell you if there was a missed opportunity to upsell or produce more revenue from that call. We can even give you a lead score for every call from 0 to 100. So you can immediately begin to gauge not just whether or not a campaign is producing calls, but whether or not they're producing good calls. And there's a big difference there, believe me. And so in today's day and age, with mobile search really becoming the predominant way companies are prospects are interacting with your company, calls are becoming more and more vital because, as you know, the number 2 action on a mobile search is a phone call when people are searching business-related topics. So calls matter a lot. Our tool gives you more data about calls. That's us. Second question is, why do you host all these webinars? We do a ton of them. As you can see here, if you scroll through, we've got a webinar coming up with Quizio next week, Signpost. We're hosting one next week. And then we've obviously got today, we have Josh. We have past webinars here. Last week we had a webinar with the CEO of Mobile Mixed, Greg Hickman, a large mobile agency. And so we host a ton of webinars. We do 1 to 2 a week. And the reason is we really want to provide useful content. We want to provide useful information for you so you can do your jobs better. And that's really what we're about. And then, obviously, we're not totally charitable and altruistic. We also know it's important for us to get in front of really important marketers like you all are. So we're glad you're here today on our webinar series. You'll notice that there's recorded webinars down below. This webinar is being recorded as well, and we'll email that recording to you tomorrow morning. Only other thing to mention before we introduce Josh is questions. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. We encourage you to ask questions at the end. We'll have an extended Q&A period with Josh, which he's graciously blocked out of his schedule so we can take a few minutes of his time. And we encourage you to ask questions about today's topic or about anything else of note. So before we introduce Josh, one final thing. I'm just curious where everybody's calling in from today. So type in the question bar there where you are calling in from. And let's make sure that we all are totally engaged. This gives you a chance to know exactly where the question area is and gives me a chance to know a little bit more about you. So just to give you an idea, our company is based in Salt Lake City. I am based in a satellite office in St. George, Utah, about 2 hours north of Las Vegas. So it is 74 degrees and sunny today here, which I'm sure those of you in the Northeast will be upset at me for that. So here we go. We have people from Texas, Georgia, Washington State. Thomas says he's from the future, which is fantastic. We have California. We have another from Atlanta. We have some from Texas, New York City, Upper New York State, South Dakota, San Diego. Fantastic. North Carolina. So we got people from all over the map. Josh is calling in from Kansas City. Vision Interactive has offices in Dallas and other places as well. So now let me introduce Josh. We're really glad that he's agreed to join us today. He's the lead strategist for Vision Interactive. He's worked with Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, e-commerce companies, doing search marketing campaigns. That's really his area of expertise. He's a contributor, a monthly writer at Search Engine Watch, which is probably the most prestigious online marketing pub probably in the world. And so he knows his stuff. We're thrilled to have him on the webinar today. And this is his first webinar he's done with us, and so we're really, really excited that he's here. So Josh, thanks for joining us. I'm going to give you control of the screen, sir. And yeah, we really appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, hopefully you guys can see my screen now.
We can. Yep, it looks great.
All right. Thank you for the nice introduction there, McKay. And thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day to join me for a little bit to talk about 2015, this great year that we have ahead of us, and how we're going to overtake our digital competition. As McKay said, I'm Josh McCoy, digital marketing strategist, and I work for Vision Interactive. Waiting for my screen to move. There we go. I got it. So a little bit more about myself. Yes, I am involved in search marketing campaigns. I love search marketing, and my roots and my passion for the better part of a decade has been specifically in SEO, but I learned over time that our landscape changes and evolves, that to be a good SEO, I had to be a good link builder, and nowadays I have to be a good link earner. So I have to develop great content that can do well in social, and also use other channels like PPC and email. And all of a sudden I realized I'm not really an SEO anymore. I'm a digital marketing strategist. So that's what I call myself. I love all things digital and how they work together. Yes, I am a columnist at Search Engine Watch. Please go out there and check out my stuff, and feel free to heckle me in the comments section. The topic of competitive analysis is one I absolutely love, and I've spoke a lot on this in conference channels across the nation. I speak for Digital Summit, Integrated Marketing Summit, ClickSee Live, which many of you have probably been to Search Engine Strategies before. That's their new brand. And also here in KC, besides our great barbecue, we have the Kansas City Search Engine Marketing Association, which I am a managing partner of. As I said, I work for Vision Interactive, and we do all these cool acronyms, like I was mentioning, the SEO and the paid search, the PPC, and SMM, social media marketing. And what I'm going to talk about today, when we look at competitive analysis, is not just SEO anymore. It's not just paid search. We're looking into all the different channels. So that's what we specialize in. It's not just a few disciplines. It's a lot of different things. It's PPC, it's SEO, it's social, it's omni-channel strategies, how we measure that through analytics and reporting, all the way to the look and feel of it, conversion rate optimization, usability, and web design. So a myriad of several things. I urge you to go out and check out our site, our new site that we launched last month. That's really pretty and really cool. And also check out our blog where I write on similar topics. I actually have a blog post that this topic stemmed from a month ago, so please feel free to go and check that out. But to get into what I want to talk about today, we need to start with understanding our digital competition and how we're going to go and take some of their success away from them and mimic some of the success that they've achieved so we can do better ourselves digitally in 2015. So a great starting point for us is going to be content. You may have heard SEO used quite a bit, that term, in the past 10, 15 years. And now in the last couple of years, it's starting to become more content marketing. And I solely believe in that because that's what it is. It is moving in that direction. It's not back in the days of let's find some keywords that we really want to rank for, put those sporadically on our site, and go out and grab some links, and we're going to rank for those terms. That's great. What we want to do now is think with a different mindset and develop great content that we know our audience wants, because we want to serve them, we want to bring them into the site, and we want them to convert our intended actions on the site. So what we're going to do in this competitive lens is first start by saying, what is the content that they have that ranks out there on the web organically? First, we're going to do that. And if that content's out there ranking, it's probably content that has links to it, social shares, likes, tweets, social engagement. Google and Bing can tell that this is content that people like. This is the content that they're going to rank. We're going to move past that, and we're going to start going out into social media and looking at what the audience is. And I'll probably say this 3 or 4 times throughout the channels that I walk through, but we're looking at their audience because their audience is our audience. Those are the people that we want to attract. So we're definitely going to take a keen look at what their audience is. Now, competitive analysis is, you can do a manual review of the site, you can do a manual review of social properties and what they're doing in paid search, but you really need to rely on competitive tools and tool sets and software that they have out there, because it makes your job a lot easier, and you can really glean a lot of insight really quickly with these tools. And I've got about 4 or 5 tools I wanted to quickly showcase to show you what I personally use on a day-to-day basis when I'm looking at client sites or client competitors. Once we've got all this data, we can understand the audience and the content strategy that they have, we need to start creating a plan of attack, as I call it, or an editorial calendar, timelining how we're going to become successful in overtaking this competition. Because as busy as we are today, and everyone on this call could probably agree, you might have great ideas. If you don't put it into a plan, then they fizzle out. Great ideas get forgotten sometimes pretty quickly. We just have too much going on. In competitive analysis, it's so important for digital marketing because, like I said, we're targeting the same audience. Those are the people that we want to attract. The competitive analysis makes my job, makes your job so much easier because we can already see what's winning out there, and we just have to replicate that. Now, I want to softly say replicate because we don't want to directly mimic what they're doing, because then we look like copycats, and that's just bad marketing. That's just bad advertising as well. But honing our sights on the competitors and everything we can do this year is really going to help you out. I read this the other day. The digital marketing spend is forecasted to increase to 35% of total budgets in the next year. So the dollars are going into digital marketing, and now is there's no better time than now to be out there looking at what the competition is doing, so we can be the ones that are standing on top of the mountain. So first, we're going to understand the visibility. I'm going to get into all these points here. We're going to understand what content gaps exist. We're going to move outside of organic search and in the content that's ranking organically, look at other channels or sub-channels that they're using, the frequency and tone of their message. We're going to look at that audience, that's their audience, which again is our audience, and we're going to try to successfully mimic these strategies so they can help us out in 2015. So the first place we want to start here is on the organic search / SEO side of things. We want to look at what content ranks. Now, I'm going to run into a tool, SEMrush. This is probably by far my favorite competitive analysis tool. I'm in these all day, every day, because I can look at my site or my client site and get all kinds of great data on rankings, ranking pages, search volume per term, linked data, site audit. It goes on and on and on. But it's a really great tool. But the first thing I want to do for these competitors that I see out there that are ranking for these terms that I want to rank for is I'm going to look at the high search volume terms that they're ranking for. I'm going to look at over time, has this trend been going upward? Are they doing something successful to expand their keyword breadth? And then I have the little red box around this. I want to look now specifically at the URLs, the content out there on their site that's ranking. Now, when you look at the tool here, and I know I've got it kind of small, I'm trying to scrunch everything together in here, they're kind of chopped off. So what I'm going to do is take an export here and bring it into a CSV and XLS, and instead of initially just sorting by keyword or rankings or search volume, I want to look at all these keyword rankings by their URL. Because a lot of times you're going to get a lot of keyword breadth that isn't just necessarily the home page or the product page or the services page or the About Us page. They have developed content on the site to rank for many terms. Now, my example there is a blog that, we're servicing many pages that fit in that folder for that section of the site. But maybe they create a large resource guide or a how-to guide or a video series. There's several different things you can do, several different content sections that you can have on the site. I want to see if they're doing something like that, and they probably are if they've got lots and lots of rankings out there, I want to start getting a feeling for what these sections are. Excuse me. I want to look at what content gaps exist between our sites. So I could run my site through that same tool too, do that export, and look at what content we have ranking and see, oh, wow, they've got that how-to section, they've got that resources, they've got the blog, they've got all these different types of content offerings that we don't have. That starts the wheels in motion on this content strategy of what we need to potentially build out on our site. As we move forward, we'll start filling in the gaps of, what kind of how-tos or what kind of blog posts or what kind of articles or what kind of white papers that we need to start creating. But this starts to let us know how far behind the curve we may be in content generation. That content that we saw out there that was ranking, Google and Bing are not going to rank junk content out there in their indexes. They're going to rank content that has links to it, that has social attention, that they know people like. It's insightful, it's resourceful, and it's informational. So another tool that I like to step into after I walk away from SEMrush, just for a little bit, is Open Site Explorer. And this is a tool that will show me when I put in the competitor's domain name, run up the top pages here. Aside from the home page having a lot of the link weight of the site, underneath that's going to show me the pages on the site that gain the most amount of links. So typically, what gains the most amount of links, like I said, is that informational content. You don't always have people going, wow, that's a cool product page, I want to link to that. Or that's a cool service page for your heating company, I want to go and link to that. It's going to be that awesome infographic you created, or that article that was so helpful to someone that they want to link out to that from their site. Next, I go to a tool called BuzzSumo. And this is going to show me when I put the domain name for that competitor, what is the content that has had the most social interaction, social engagement in either the last day, week, year. I think they have a 6-month filter as well. So a lot of times you'll see that same content that gets the links also gets that social engagement. And BuzzSumo, just as a side note, also has backlink information now. I'm still a little old school. I like to go and use my Open Site Explorer first. Then I'll jump over to BuzzSumo. Who knows, I may change that in 2015 and make my life a little bit easier. Second thing I want to look out there in BuzzSumo is we see the content that they're putting out there. Let's look at it by channel. I have it a little chopped off here. We have Facebook shares, LinkedIn shares, Twitter information, Google+, and I think maybe even YouTube hanging off the side over there. Be cognizant of what channels work the best for what content that they're putting out there. You may find that they are really nurturing Facebook, and they've got a lot of engagement there. They're getting a lot of shares. That's their audience they have out there. That's also your audience. Let's put some attention there. They may be totally neglecting another area like Twitter, and it's going to be less competition for you to go into that space and start doing your promotions and promoting that great content. Another thing to be looking at in the BuzzSumo is what content types are being deployed. When I say content, I think people still have a mindset of it's just text, it's just an article, it's just a white paper. In today's day and age, it's not. And in that BuzzSumo tool, underneath the title, you'll be able to see if it's a video, if it's an infographic, if it's a blog post. So not just textual, it's also of aesthetic appeal now. And there's many different types of, content types that you can deploy. Like I said, what social channels receive the most engagement? If I see that they're really rocking it in Facebook, I'm probably going to start there just so I can get some insight on what types of content they're pushing that way, how they're nurturing it, the kind of engagement, the kind of conversations that are taking place there, and that's probably where I'm going to start first. I'm actually going to step into something that's probably the most competitive instead of walking over to a channel that isn't really proven by anybody else in that landscape of that competition set. Still walking down the road of social media, I think it's paramount that, and this is something you probably already do, to monitor your competitors and what they're doing in social channels by, what they're posting, how they're responding to people that are asking them questions. That's great, but I think a step that people really aren't taking a whole lot right now that they could is actually advertising against those competitors. So and not to run too far off the side, but I like to advertise in Facebook, and I like to do it in Twitter, and I like to hone in on specific age groups and genders first. And you may have done persona research in the past or customer surveys to kind of get a feel for, who your typical age group is or who your gender is. But if you haven't, I would say enable display advertiser features or demographic targeting in Google Analytics. Get a feel for who's coming into the site by age group and gender and in-market segment, and look at who's converting. Then you're going to get a better feel for who should I be advertising towards by age, gender, and interest. But specifically with competitive analysis in mind and going after that competitor in the interest section when I'm setting up these ads to go out and target these people to either visit my site or like my page and become my social audience, I'm going to start looking at the interests of my competitors' names and seeing what people like them. That's a way that you're not necessarily just yet taking over the competition, but you're leveling that playing field. We need to go out there and start, I guess kind of stealing that audience away from them and accruing some eye share away from that competitor. On the Twitter side of things, we can do the similar thing there where we're doing paid advertising to build our audience up around certain interest groups. But what I'm going to do instead of just targeting those people that follow the competitor with paid advertising, I can use a tool like Twitterland to start looking at that conversation like I was talking about on the Facebook side. What are people talking about? What are they tweeting? What types of information are they putting out? Is it getting a lot of retweets itself? Is it getting a lot of replies itself? Next, I want to use this tool, Follower Wonk, and I can see all the people that follow them, and I can start going out and following them. So again, we're not overtaking them just yet, but we're kind of leveling that playing field. What's great about this tool, though, is I can actually sort this and look at the people that follow them that have a high followership themselves. They have a large audience, they're active in Twitter, and they have an audience that likes to retweet the information that they're pulling out. Those are the first people that I'm going to go out and follow. And I'm actually going to remember those folks right there because whenever I have a great piece of content, I'm going to be reaching out to them personally and saying, hey, I see, and hopefully they're going to follow you back. I see that you like this company out there, or AKA competitor. We have a similar product service or, along the same lines of what they're offering. So please, we'd like to get some love from you here and see if you could send out a message for this. So that's a way that we can go out there and interrupt their influence that they have and find these power influencers and try to help level that playing field. Next, in social media, even more tools out there such as Meltwater and Topsy. I talk about listening to the conversation. Of course, we want to directly look at the profiles of competitors to see what's going on, to understand their frequency of posts and their tones, their messaging, what types of posts they're putting out there, whether it's links, video, or just, links, images, or video that they're putting out there, what content types get the most engagement, kind of like what we were talking about with using the BuzzSumo tool. But listen to that conversation. In tools like this, you can understand the questions around certain keywords and competitor names. Are they complaining about competitors? Is that an opportunity for you to step in and save the day as you ride in on your white horse? And also listen for keyword topics and questions, like I said, questions that they're asking, because now this is starting to feed your ideas or your fodder for your content marketing strategy. We talked about the sections of the competitor site that we know we need to build out something similar. Now we're starting to get ideas of the types of content that we're going to put into those sections. What types of blog posts do we need? What types of articles do we need to write to satisfy that need for all the questions that are being asked or or what's really hot right now, what's trending, what people are talking about. So know the influencers, reach out, follow them, understand, like I said, post-frequency engagement and what type of content is accepted by their audience, aka your audience. So I know I talk fast. Let's take a quick breather here, and like my image there, you can crash on the wood park bench. Up to now, we understand the content that ranks really well organically. And the reason why it's probably ranking really well organically is because it's linked, liked, and shared. And then we've also looked at that audience, which is our audience, and gaining an understanding of what they like to see and who we need to go out and befriend ourselves so we can build up an audience. So when we develop content this year in 2015, we have a much better audience, the same audience as our competitors, and we're shooting that content in front of their eyeballs. Next up, let's jump to a different channel, paid search. SpySu is a great competitive analysis tool out there, pretty similar to SEMrush, but I like using them whenever I initially go out and look at what competitor spends are. And a lot of times specific tool data, specific metrics, I tell people you got to take it slightly with a grain of salt. It may not be exactly spot on. It's great, like with this example here. If you had paid search you were running right now, you'd know what you're spending, look what the tool says you're spending, and do a little Kentucky windage there, and you can gauge that just to find out if they're spending a whole lot more than you. And if they are spending more than you, that's not the worst thing in the world, because you want to learn how to spend smarter instead of spending more. But first off, we want to see where we sit on the spend scale. Then we want to dial that in a little bit more. And SpySu does this next graph. SEMrush does this next graph too. Really like this because now we're starting to hone in. We know that they've got a bigger bucket that they're throwing a lot more money into, but let's look at where they're spending that money keyword-wise, specifically in paid search advertising. So you see my example here, progressive.com and statefarm.com. This shows us of our paid visibility how much of the paid keyword visibility we own in the Venn diagram there to the right, for the orange guys over here, what we share there in the middle, and then everything that Progressive, in my example, owns over there. So there's a few different things we're going to do with this. This may be a cool little graph. We can actually click on the different sections and get an export of those keywords, so we can start taking away their sole visibility and playing in that same space. We also, and if you could take your minds back to that last slide where the circles of the Venn diagram sat on top of each other, there we shared a space. And this is where we really want to think about our messaging, because if we're rather vanilla in our messaging, our ad copy, ad text, and the competitor's not, they're the ones that are gaining that click out there. So this is why I like SEMrush for this part of review, because we can go out there and see exactly all the different ads that they have out there and what their messaging is. If they've got a great offer that they're putting up there, and ours has just come to our site, here's our brand name, then they're probably going to win the click. So be mindful of the message. Besides being mindful of the message, be mindful of the segmentation gap. Up till now in the last couple slides, we were talking about just keyword bidding and paid search. There's the paid display network, display advertising as well. Anyone that's opted into the Google Ad Network is going to have image ads and links out there on the web. So another reason why I like SEMrush, and I swear I'm not a spokesman for them, I just love this tool so much compared to all the other ones out there. But this is great because stepping out of search and looking at display, we can start thinking about the other areas of paid advertising that we're not partaking in. Do we sell products? Are we in product listing? Do we have great creative that we can put in display? What sites, and you can see that publishers there, what publishing sites out there are the competitors on that we need to be on? What's the messaging that they have in these ads, and what are the offers? What are they giving people, and how can we counter that and be competitive in that space? Thinking beyond AdWords, and there's a little bit of AdWords to this slide, but SimilarWeb is a great tool to look at upstream and downstream information. Years ago, we utilized a tool called Hitwise. It was extremely expensive, though, and seemed like it was only valid unless it wasn't valid unless you had a massive client that you were working for that got a lot of traffic, and you could actually see, what sites people were coming to, then going to the site, then where they were going to next. And while you can look in Google Analytics for yourself and see where traffic comes from, you don't have the Google Analytics access or any analytical access, for that matter, for the competitors. But I'd like to see where they're coming from and where they're going from as well. So when I look at the left side here of what's coming up into the site, these are sites that they probably have links on. These are probably sites that they are doing display advertising in. But nonetheless, you want to take a consideration for these sites to think, how can I get a link here? How can I advertise here? So instead of them going to the competitor site, at least I have a chance at getting some eye share there in front of that prospective customer, which is a person that should be a part of my audience. Next, as it comes through the site there, we see our blue line trailing off. That's where they're leaving. That's probably where your competitor has an external link that's kicking people off the site to another site, or people are just simply leaving and going somewhere else. This is another chance to think about, they've left that site. Is this a display network site that I could go after? Before potentially your competitor has retargeting set up and they're going to try to start stealing those people or getting those people to come back into the site. So this is just another way of thinking, instead of just certain keyword bids or certain publisher sites, start thinking about the competition, where the traffic's coming from, goes to your competitor site, where's it going to next. So as I pointed out there rather briefly, you don't have to spend more if you can spend smarter and understand the visibility gaps. We saw on that left side where Progressive had so much more visibility that we didn't have. We need to level that playing field. The middle that we both share, we need to make sure that our messaging is keen and insightful, or I'm sorry, exciting to people, enticing, and we can steal that click away from the competitor on the paid side. And then the other opportunities, like I just mentioned, just kind of thinking a little bit outside of the box of where we might be able to advertise to get in front of our intended audience. Next is email. And this is rather simple compared to using so many tools and exports and really crunching lists. But I say simple there, it's to watch and learn. SimilarWeb, like we were just looking on the previous slide, it's a great competitive tool, and it can give you the traffic source data. This is where I usually go first if I'm thinking about a competitor and email, just to get an eye for maybe the percentage of traffic they get from email. Are they devoting a lot themselves to email and getting a lot of traffic that way? Again, kind of a grain of salt graph. If you have their analytics, which we don't have the competitors' analytics, we truly know how much email traffic they get, but we don't. But still, it's kind of nice to see if they're getting some good percentage traffic out of email. Another reason why I call it simple is go out there to their site, subscribe to their newsletter, buy their product, even if if you're not giving away too much of your hard-earned money to the enemy, the competitor, but get on their email list and watch that. Make sure that gain an understanding if they're doing it right. If they're really spamming people out pretty bad, they're probably landing in your spam folder, not in your inbox. That's a cue that you want to take note of. You also want to look at the frequency of those emails and also look at the messaging of those emails. I talked about the omni-channel approach here, where we first created that great content that will be used for organic search SEO purposes. We also saw it being, it's fodder for social media. It can also be used in PPC. Typically, you want some really good landing pages there. I'm not necessarily going to be shipping people off to an article or a white paper through paid search, unless it's definitely a lead gen opportunity, because we're spending money on that. We got to make some money off it. But email's great. It's something we do. We write a blog post. We have an email that's about that. We're kicking that out to social. We're squeezing everything we can out of that content to get in front of people. Watch that message that they have in their email and see if that's something that you can do as well. And I think I hit all those points in that last slide when I was talking about that. So, simple enough. I've walked through the channels here, and of course we could spend days walking through these individually. I'm trying to give you guys some nuggets of information to help you go out there and use these tools, use them appropriately, but they start getting your mind churning. Like I said, we were starting to find the content gaps. Now we're starting to find some of the topics we should be writing about, some of the channels we should be using, and then look at these competitors to understand the audience, look at what they've done, and try to, similarly, as I have that in quotes, mimic that. No one-for-one copycatting here, but as I said, competitive analysis makes our life easier because we can see what worked for them, and it can help us in our daily jobs. So what's next is actually laying the groundwork of how we're going to tackle this. And I keep this really simple. I usually go out and I will create Google Docs or Google spreadsheets with my clients, so everybody on a team, from a designer to the developer to the writers to the social media team, everybody's on board with what we're trying to do here. If we just talk about the great things we want to do, like I said, we're busy. They get forgotten and it goes away. We actually create a spreadsheet of all the different content sections we're going to build out, the subtopics, the date it's due, who's responsible, what parties have to work together to get this done, and when that goes live. You're going to start to see an actual plan of attack happening, and it's great. It's wonderful to see it when it actually starts taking charge and everything starts working correctly. Like I mentioned before, that multi-channel strategy is going to be key for making your life easier by taking one piece of content and using it across all the different channels that you have out there in digital marketing. And that is all I have for today. I guess right now we will open it up for any questions that anybody has out there.
That was awesome. That was a really good presentation, and we really appreciate that, Josh. So, yeah, let's get into some questions real quick here. So everybody, type those questions into the question bar. Josh went over a lot of stuff, and we want to make sure that we answer your questions about that stuff. So, so here's a couple of questions to start things off with. You mentioned SEMrush a lot, and we've done webinars with those guys. They're a great company. Tell me why you think they're sort of the preeminent tool in that space, because I agree. I think you're only as good as your information, and your information is really only as good as your tools. So tell me a little bit about why you think SEMrush does such a good job, and how we should view those tools and evaluate them.
One of the main reasons why I think I like them, I guess a few out there, when it's a one-stop shop. Like I said, I use that tool for competitive analysis, but I also use it for my own clients because there's so many different offerings in that software set, or in that tool, that it makes my life a whole lot easier. And I was actually eating dinner last month at Dallas Digital Summit with the tool provider, and he was telling, he's in the link building world, and he said, your tool is dying if you're not coming up with new offerings and new twists to it. And that's something I think SEMrush has done a good job of adding link data also into the tool, of adding a keyword research element, and then a site auditing tool to go out and find all the SEO mistakes and errors that you're making. So that's kind of why I really like them, because they're always they're on the cusp of it. It seems like they're always changing and coming up with something new. Cool.
That's great. Innovation's key, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So what are the biggest mistakes? I mean, you guys work with a lot of different types of clients. What are the biggest mistakes you see when you start working with a client? You say, okay, we've got to correct this, then we've got to establish this, as you go through your process when you're starting to work with a client?
I think the biggest mistake that you can make as a client walking in is having your blinders on and thinking and how I say it, not getting out of your head and getting into your customers. So with what we were talking about, how we kind of led things off with that content strategy, if you walked into it saying, oh, I just know that our audience wants to hear about this, or I really think that they would like this, before you go out and do this competitive analysis, before you go out there and look at that audience, and you could even go out and do interviews and focus groups and things like that to understand what do people want, what are their pain points, their problems, what kind of information do they think is cool. Because when you go in there thinking you know everything off the bat is when you fall on your face, right from the get.
That's good advice probably for anything in life, right? So, okay, a couple more questions here. So as you're evaluating your clients' campaigns or their content efforts, I guess one of the things is, see, I'm at the core a content marketer. When you're evaluating a client's content specifically, is it a good place to go to those to SEMrush tools like that to say, okay, not only how should we what should we target, what campaigns should we do, but what content should we actually create? What's going to be interesting to them? Is SEMrush or a tool like that a good place to gather that information in terms of what type of content to create?
The tool that I would use the most, there was, I think, 3-4 slides in there. When I was walking out of Open Site Explorer and looking at links, and then I went into BuzzSumo, that tool, and I'm not sure how long it's been out, but I would say the last 6 months, 8 months, I've kind of fallen in love with that tool, just because I can look at a domain name, or I can even look at a keyword, think of a topic out there. Maybe I'm not even doing competitive analysis to see what people like. I put that keyword in there, and I'm not just talking about red widgets. When I put the keyword in there, I'm getting a built-out list of, wow, somebody did an infographic on the history of red widgets, and that got so many shares and so much engagement in Facebook. Oh, wow, there's a how-to that somebody had done. How can I look at that content they've made, not completely duplicate it, but maybe take a different twist to it? Maybe if somebody has created great content like that that's 4 or 5 years old, I can kind of closely mimic that because I can update that, refresh it. Now I'm going to go out there and get a lot of links and social engagement for a very similar topic.
Perfect. And then finally, last question, talk to us a little bit about your agency, where you guys specialize, and then also how people can engage with you. What's the best way for people to become a Vision Interactive client, or at least consider you guys as part of their process for choosing an agency to work with?
Our specialty is the soups and nuts. In the far past, we were kind of like I was talking about. We were very much SEO and PPC. And then social came into the fray, and, social cues matter for SEO now, and they have for the last couple of years. So like I was talking about, you can't just solely have your passion in one place. You've got to be doing a little bit like this presentation, a little bit of everything. It's digital marketing now. It's not saying, oh, I'm a PPC wizard or I'm the SEO guru. You need to be a jack of all trades here. So that's something that we've definitely encompassed, I would say, over the last couple of years, is evolving with the digital marketing industry and not solely honing down into we just do SEO. Because now even for our SEO campaigns, we're out there building content that can gain links to help us in SEO, content for social that can help us out to build our audience, and using fruitful efforts like email marketing and paid search. It all comes together, and that's why we love doing what we do. Just as we get to do a little bit of everything. If anybody wants to contact me, I'm a doofus, and I forgot to put my email there. It's josh.mccoy@visioninteractive.com, vision with a Z. We have our Twitter handle there at VisionWeb. Please feel free to go out there and heckle me there as well, or ask me any questions that you have. Also, my personal Twitter handle, which totally fine with you guys reaching out to me there. Let me know how I did. That's Joshua C. McCoy, at Joshua C. McCoy is my personal Twitter handle. So that's the best ways to get a hold of me, and then I've got some phone numbers there that I have on that last slide.
Great. I don't think you're a doofus. Sometimes we just forget things. No big deal. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And everybody, thank you for taking the time as well. Any last thoughts before we close up, Josh?
Go out there and take hold in 2015. The digital marketing world is yours.
Look at that. Motivation to end the call. That's fantastic. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon, and register for our webinars next week. So thank you much. Bye-bye.
Okay.